The first time I saw her, she was standing in the middle of my penthouse living room holding a broken wine glass, and staring at me like she already knew how my story ended. Rain hammered against the giant windows overlooking downtown Chicago. My suit jacket hung loose over my shoulder, my tie half undone after another brutal night at the firm. I'd spent the last 3 years turning myself into a machine after my father died. Work. Whiskey. Silence. Repeat. Then I walked into my apartment and found a stranger cleaning blood off her hand. What the hell happened? I snapped. She looked up calmly. Your cat attacked me. I don't have a cat. A pause. Then a fluffy gray animal jumped onto the marble counter beside her. I stared. Where did that come from? The woman sighed. Your mother dropped him off this morning. Of course she did. My mother controlled everything in my life from a distance, my company shares, my social image, even the flowers at Dad's funeral. We barely spoke anymore, mostly because every conversation turned into manipulation. And who are you exactly? I asked coldly. The woman wiped her hand with a towel. Elena. That doesn't answer my question. I'm your new housekeeper. I laughed once. Sharp. Humorless. I never hired one. Your mother did. There it was. Another attempt to manage me like a damaged investment. I should have thrown her out immediately. Instead, I noticed something strange. Elena didn't act nervous around me. Most people did. Especially after headlines started calling me the Ice Prince of Chicago Finance. But she just walked past me, calm and composed, wearing an oversized sweater with her dark hair tied loosely back. Your coffee machine is broken, she said. And you haven't eaten real food in days. How would you know that? She looked directly into my eyes. Because lonely people leave evidence everywhere. That line hit harder than it should have. And standing there under the storm-lit skyline, I had no idea that the woman my mother sent into my home was about to destroy every wall I'd built around my heart. Elena stayed. Not because I wanted her to. Because somehow, within 48 hours, she'd already taken control of the apartment like she'd lived there for years. The penthouse stopped feeling cold. The kitchen smelled like actual food instead of expensive liquor. Jazz music quietly played in the mornings. Fresh flowers appeared near the windows. Even the lighting felt warmer somehow. I hated how much I noticed it. You reorganized my office, I said one night. You couldn't find your own documents. I knew where everything was. She raised an eyebrow. Then why were tax reports inside your freezer? I stared at her. That's not the point. She smiled for the first time. And that smile was dangerous. Not flashy. Not dramatic. Real. The kind that quietly sneaks past your defenses before you realize what's happening. Over the next few weeks, she became impossible to ignore. Sometimes I'd wake up after falling asleep on the couch and find a blanket over me. Sometimes she'd leave coffee outside my office before meetings. Sometimes she'd challenge me in ways nobody dared to. You work like you're trying to punish yourself, she told me one evening. What's your psychology degree from? Watching people. And what do you see when you watch me? She hesitated. Then softly said, a man who thinks being needed is the same thing as being loved. The room went silent. Nobody talked to me like that. Nobody saw me like that. I should have been angry. Instead, I couldn't stop thinking about her. One Friday night, after a brutal board meeting, I came home drunk and exhausted. The city lights blurred outside the windows as I loosened my collar. Elena sat on the balcony wrapped in a blanket reading a book. You wait up for me? I asked. She closed the book slowly. Someone should. That simple answer nearly broke me. For the first time in years, I didn't feel alone in my own home. And that terrified me more than anything. Because people who mattered always left eventually. The problem with falling for someone quietly is that one day you realize it's already too late. For me, it happened during a thunderstorm. The power went out across half the building just after midnight. The penthouse dropped into darkness except for flashes of lightning outside. Elena? I called. In the kitchen. I found her lighting candles across the counter. The soft glow wrapped around her face, turning the entire room cinematic and unreal. You afraid of storms? She asked. No. You walked in here pretty fast for someone fearless. I smirked slightly. I thought you might be. She laughed under her breath. Then thunder shook the windows. Instinctively, she flinched. I noticed. You are afraid. Just a little. Another flash lit the room. Without thinking, I stepped closer. Close enough to smell vanilla and rain on her skin. Close enough to feel the tension shift. Elena. Her breathing changed. Mine did too. Every logical warning in my brain screamed at me to stop. Employee. Stranger. Temporary. But loneliness makes fools out of people. And for the first time in years, I wanted something more than survival. I touched her hand. She froze. Then whispered, "You shouldn't do that." "Why?" "Because you'll regret it." "I don't regret you." The silence between us became electric. Then suddenly, her phone buzzed on the counter. She immediately pulled away. The screen lit up briefly. "Mother." I frowned. "You talk to my mother often?" "Too often." I saw panic flash across her face for half a second before she locked the phone. "She checks in sometimes." "At midnight?" "She worries about you." That answer didn't sit right. Not even close. But before I could press further, she walked away. And standing there in candlelight, watching her disappear down the hallway, I felt something dangerous begin to grow. Suspicion. After that night, everything changed between us. The tension became impossible to hide. Every glance lingered too long. Every accidental touch felt intentional. And Elena started avoiding me. If I entered a room, she suddenly found an excuse to leave. If we sat together, she kept emotional distance like she was fighting herself every second. Which only made me want her more. One evening, I came home early and heard her laughing on the phone in the kitchen. A real laugh. Soft. Beautiful. The second she saw me, it vanished. "I'll call you later," she quickly said before hanging up. Who was that? No one. That sounded like someone. She grabbed dishes too fast, clearly nervous. I stepped closer. "You've been acting strange for days." "I'm fine." "You're lying." Her eyes finally met mine. And for the first time, I saw genuine guilt there. That unsettled me. "What aren't you telling me?" I asked quietly. Before she could answer, my phone rang. My mother. Perfect timing. "What?" I answered coldly. "You missed dinner again," my mother said sharply. "I didn't know attendance was mandatory. You've become impossible since your father died. And you've become unbearable." Silence. Then she calmly asked, "How's Elena?" I froze. Slowly turning toward the kitchen. Elena looked terrified. My chest tightened. "What about her?" "She's helping, isn't she?" "Helping with what?" Another pause. Then my mother said something that changed everything. "She was supposed to keep an eye on you." The world stopped. I looked directly at Elena. Her face went pale. "What does that mean?" I asked dangerously. But deep down, I already knew. The moment my mother hung up, the apartment became unbearably silent. I stared at Elena across the kitchen island while rage slowly built inside me. "You were spying on me?" "No." "Then explain." Her eyes filled with emotion. "It wasn't like that." "Really?" "Because my mother literally said you were sent to watch me. She was worried about you." I laughed bitterly. "My mother doesn't worry. She controls." Elena looked devastated because she knew I was right. "I didn't tell her private things," she said softly. "Not really." "Not really?" "She just wanted updates." "Updates?" I stepped back like I couldn't even recognize her anymore. "What was I to you exactly? A project? A paycheck?" "No," she cried. Then quieter. "You were never just that." But trust, once cracked, changes shape forever. I walked away before she could explain more. For 3 days, we barely spoke. Yet somehow her absence hurt more than the betrayal itself. The apartment felt empty again. Cold again. I hated that I missed her. Then on the 4th night, I found her sitting alone on the balcony crying silently into her sleeves. I should have walked away. Instead I sat beside her. Neither of us spoke for a while. Finally she whispered, "Your mother came to me 6 months ago." I stayed silent. "She said you were falling apart after your father died. She said you pushed everyone away. She was scared." "She hired you to fix me?" "She hired me to make sure you survived yourself." I clenched my jaw. "And somewhere along the way?" Elena's voice broke. "I fell in love with you." That hurt worst of all because I believed her instantly. Every late-night conversation. Every worried glance. Every small act of care. None of it felt fake. And that was the problem. Because now I didn't know which betrayal hurt more. That she lied to me, or that despite everything, I still loved her too. I tried to end it after that. Tried being the important word. Because avoiding Elena became impossible when every part of the penthouse carried traces of her. Her books on the shelves. Her coffee mugs in the sink. Her perfume lingering in elevators after she stepped out. And worst of all? The way she still looked at me. Like she loved me even when she knew she shouldn't. One night, unable to sleep, I entered my father's old study for the first time in months. That's where I found the letter. Hidden inside a drawer beneath old company files. My name written in Dad's handwriting. My chest tightened instantly. I opened it carefully. And as I read the words, the world tilted beneath me. If you're reading this, it means your mother finally ran out of ways to protect you gently. I frowned. Protect me from what? Then came the next line. The board members who smiled at you after my funeral are the same men trying to take control of the company. Your mother knows. She's been fighting them alone. I kept reading faster. Trust Elena. She's the daughter of the only man I ever trusted completely. My pulse stopped. What? Your mother didn't send her to spy on you. I asked them both to watch over you if anything ever happened to me. I sat there frozen. The final sentence shattered me completely. You inherited my company, son. But you also inherited my enemies. Suddenly every strange thing made sense. My mother's paranoia. Elena's secrecy. The constant tension. They weren't controlling me. They were protecting me. And I had pushed away the one person who genuinely stayed when everyone else abandoned me. Then my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered cautiously. A man's voice spoke coldly. If you want Elena alive, come alone. My blood ran ice cold. The warehouse sat near the frozen river outside downtown Chicago. Dark. Empty. Dangerous. I arrived alone just before midnight, every instinct screaming this was a trap. Inside, dim industrial lights flickered above rusted machinery. Then I saw her. Elena tied to a chair. Bruised but conscious. Lucas, don't. A man struck her across the face before she could finish. Something inside me snapped instantly. 3 men stepped from the shadows. One of them smiled. I recognized him immediately. Victor Hale. One of the senior board members from my father's company. You finally understand your father's little game, he said calmly. You killed him. Victor smirked but didn't answer directly. Your father protected that company like a kingdom. Now it belongs to people willing to do what's necessary. Rage burned through me. What do you want? Control. He walked slowly closer. Your mother refused to cooperate. Elena became inconvenient. Elena shook her head desperately at me. But I couldn't think clearly anymore. Not with blood on her face. Not with fear in her eyes. Victor handed me a document. Sign over voting control. She lives. And if I don't? He pulled out a gun. The room went silent. For one horrifying second, I truly believed I was about to lose her. Then suddenly, police sirens exploded outside. Red and blue lights flooded the warehouse windows. Victor cursed. Chaos erupted instantly. Men shouted. Gunfire echoed. I rushed toward Elena as officers stormed inside. Untying her hands with shaking fingers. Are you hurt? She grabbed my face desperately. You came. Of course I came. Her eyes filled with tears. And in that terrifying moment surrounded by screaming sirens and collapsing lies, I realized something undeniable. I loved her enough to lose everything for her. The next few days felt unreal. Victor Hale was arrested alongside 2 other board members connected to financial crimes, bribery, and my father's suspicious death investigation reopening after years. The media exploded. But none of it mattered to me. Because Elena was leaving. I found her packing quietly inside the guest room. You're seriously doing this? I asked. She didn't look at me. Your mother was right. When has that ever happened? A tiny sad smile appeared. You need peace. And I think I've caused enough damage. I stepped closer. You didn't destroy my life. Her voice cracked. I lied to you from the beginning. You protected me. I still lied. Finally she looked at me. And the pain in her eyes nearly killed me. I never meant to fall in love with you, she whispered. I swallowed hard. Yeah, me neither. Silence filled the room. Heavy. Emotional. Honest. Then she asked the question neither of us wanted answered. Can you ever trust me again? I stood there staring at the woman who entered my life as a secret, and somehow became the safest place I'd ever known. Trust isn't simple after betrayal. But love isn't simple either. Slowly, I walked toward her. Then gently took her hand. My entire life, I said quietly, people stayed because they wanted something from me. Tears rolled down her cheeks. But you stayed when you had every reason to run. Her breathing broke. And I don't want to lose the only person who ever truly saw me. That was it. The final wall collapsed between us. She kissed me first. Softly at first. Then emotionally, like two people finally choosing each other after fighting fate itself. And outside the windows, snow began falling quietly over the city. Like the world itself had finally exhaled. 6 months later, the penthouse no longer felt like a museum of grief. It felt alive. Music played in the mornings again. The kitchen smelled like coffee and cinnamon. And Elena still argued with me about working too much. You answered emails during dinner, she accused. It was one email. It was 17. Okay, maybe 17. She laughed while our cat, yes, apparently it was ours now, jumped onto the counter again. For the first time since my father died? I was genuinely happy. Not powerful. Not successful. Happy. But life loves one final twist. One rainy evening, my mother invited us to dinner at her estate. Tense already. Halfway through dessert, she casually slid a folder across the table toward Elena. What's this? Elena asked carefully. Open it. Inside were legal papers. Elena's eyes widened instantly. What is this? My mother calmly sipped wine. Your father saved my husband's company 22 years ago. This is repayment. I grabbed the folder. Then froze. Shares. A massive percentage of company ownership transferred directly to Elena. She's kidding, right? I asked. My mother smirked slightly. I never joke about business. Elena looked overwhelmed. I can't accept this. Yes, you can, my mother replied softly. Because despite what Lucas thinks, you saved my son. The room fell quiet. That might have been the closest thing to love my mother had ever spoken aloud. Then she added one final sentence that stunned both of us. And frankly, Elena, you're the first woman who's ever made him human again. For once, nobody argued. I looked at Elena sitting beside me under warm candlelight while rain tapped softly against the giant windows. And suddenly I understood something my father probably knew all along. Sometimes the people sent to protect your heart end up becoming the reason it beats again.